Donald Trump escalating claims that the 2016 election is rigged. He's pointing fingers at us in the media, the polls as well, international banks, and the Clinton campaign. Is this his way of saving face in case he loses the election, or are some of the claims valid? Let's discuss with Republican Congressman Steve King from Iowa. He has endorsed Donald Trump. Congressman, good to see you. Help me understand what's happening here.
Morning.
In the first debate, Trump said, "I will support Clinton if she wins." Now, it seems after these accusers came out, the 9 or so women who have been saying that Donald Trump did inappropriate things to them, now all of a sudden everything's rigged. Do you agree with this statement?
Well, I think it's some of each, and I say that because there are things going on out there that are part of the political machine that Donald Trump points to that have been part of the political machine for a long time. They definitely tilt the playing field in the opposite direction, I think. But I also saw a bit of that pattern at the end of the Iowa caucus, and when it was that contest that came out the way it did here. So I think it's a little bit of each of that, but I do think it's a good idea for the American voters to take a look at the system that we have. There is significant evidence out there that there's voter fraud, and
well,
that
when you
we
say
have
that there's significant evidence that there's fraud, what are you pointing to? Because, you know, look, nobody is saying that our voting system is perfect. There are lots of things that could be done to improve it. Why they don't happen, why it's so antiquated, is up to you guys. Of course, it's done state by state on many different levels. But to suggest that, hey, maybe the election will be illegitimate, don't you think that's a dangerous and unsubstantiated suggestion?
I wouldn't say it's completely unsubstantiated. Partially unsubstantiated, I would agree with that. But I would look back at the 2000 election and the fiasco in Florida and the 537 votes that decided the presidency, and say that if Al Gore had not accepted the decision of the Supreme Court, we would have had discredited elections in this country back then.
Right, but he did, and certainly that wasn't a
happened.
Democrat engineering situation, right? We all know the history of what happened with that ballot and how things were lined up and the hanging Chad. We probably both wasted months of our lives on that situation. But again, to say, hey, there is a little bit of proof. Congressman, there really is no proof that there is any kind of fraud that has been prosecuted that would have changed the outcome of an election.
In the past, there have been in small cases, not in large cases like the presidency.
Small cases.
John Fund has done a lot of good work on this. And so, but that lays a foundation. By the way, these election laws are not really antiquated. The worst of them began about the time of motor voter, and they've been opening up this, making it more vulnerable for fraud ever since. Acorn, for example, 444,000 false or fraudulent voter registration forms that they confessed to. So I want to bring that thing back to squared away, and I'd say this is something we'll agree on, Democrats and Republicans. The Constitution is the foundation of our country, but the bedrock that it sits on is legitimate, free and fair elections, and the public has to perceive that they're free and fair. And I do think there's concern here that there are voices out there to delegitimize this election.
Yeah, you're one of them.
I don't want that to be the case. I want the American people to.
But you're being one of those voices right now by saying there is some proof to say that maybe it would be rigged.
There is.
There is no proof that you can point to that would demonstrate that the outcome of this election could be false. Look at the independent vetting that was done. Put it up on the screen because of these allegations and what it leads to. 146 million total registered voters, 2,068 total alleged cases. How many did they actually find? 10 cases reported. How many of these are prosecuted? Over a decade. Look at that, 38 cases. 13
Chris,
prosecuted for double voting over a decade. Congressman, I'm making the point that to suggest, well, you look at these cases, there are 13 cases, there are 10 cases. You see, there is some fraud. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that this election is going to be stolen from him. Do you agree with that?
Chris, I don't want to say anything on this program that delegitimizes the elections because I don't want the American people to lose faith in our electoral process. If we do, this entire constitutional republic could come tumbling down. So I think instead we should look at this and try to clean this up to a degree. And if we have a mainstream media that there's plenty of evidence to point to that they have been tilted in favor of Hillary Clinton by and large. We have evidence out there that illegals have been voting by the hundreds, if not the thousands. It only took 500 537 in Florida. Those are things that do concern me. When I see that there's allegations that the Clinton campaign, the Clinton Foundation, and Hillary Clinton herself are negotiating in the same phone call, a quid pro quo with the FBI, to declassify emails that were already out on her server, those things do concern me. And I don't know how we get justice in this country if we end up with another Loretta Lynch as the Attorney General and another James Comey as the Director of the FBI and a Clinton administration there that's proven for decades that that's how they operate. That is what concerns me, and I don't think we should have a presidential candidate that's trying to delegitimize the election while people are going to the polls either.
Well, look, you said a lot of things there, Congressman, but let's just get back to this central premise. You just said, I don't want to say anything that would make people feel that they should have their confidence in the system undermined. Do you accept the idea that Donald Trump saying that it is already rigged, that the fix is in, is unsubstantiated?
I would not say it's unsubstantiated. I think there's truth to some of the things that he lays out on this. I just don't think it's that constructive to make this the campaign issue. I'd rather see this turned over on what are we going to do with ISIS and budget and border security.
You can say the media is biased against Donald Trump. Knock yourself out. We could talk about that for hours. I don't think it changes anybody's minds. But I don't think it is fair.
It remains true, however.
Well, you may think it's true, but that's okay. You're right to that opinion. So the idea of, well, there's also some validity to him saying the process of our democracy is rigged, that's not okay because it's been vetted. And yes, there are problems, but they do not in any way add up to any basis for a suggestion that this election is going to be stolen for Trump. And I don't get why you won't shoot that notion down.
Chris, I take you back to 537 votes in Florida. I point to Virginia and see where Terry McAuliffe has essentially by executive edict legalized tens of thousands of felons that by law can't be allowed to vote in Virginia. There's piece after piece of this around this country that I say don't follow the law and do lead this thing in the wrong direction. We should look at those. We should abide by the law. We should be squared away with that, and we should make sure that we don't have illegals voting or registered. We should clean up our voter registration lists in this country of deceased and duplicates and felons. And we need to make sure that they're citizens and they should be certified to be citizens. And on top of that, we've got a census situation in America where we count the people rather than the citizens, and the redistricting gives representation to illegal aliens in different places across this country. So there's much that must be done, but I don't think the center part of it is the bias that's there, because I think people will finally see through that in the end. At least I hope they do.
Nobody's saying that the system can't be made better and should be made better by you where possible, but the system itself, there's no basis to delegitimize it at this point. Congressman Steve King, thank you very much for joining us. As always, spirited discussion.